She didn't raise her voice when her son said it. "Mom, you don't really need all that money. It should go toward our future." The words were calm, too calm, like a decision had already been made long before she entered the room. Nadia sat still, her fingers resting lightly on the edge of the table. Across from her, her son Samir leaned back in his chair, confident. Beside him, his wife Alina scrolled through her phone, occasionally glancing up, not with concern but with expectation. It wasn't a conversation. It was a conclusion. "I've planned everything," Alina said, sliding her tablet across the table. "Down payment, interiors, renovations. It's all organized. We just need your support." Nadia looked at the screen. Numbers, charts, plans. Not a single line asked what she wanted. "And what about me?" she asked quietly. Samir sighed like she had asked something unreasonable. "You'll still have enough," he replied. "You live simply anyway. What more do you need at this stage?" At this stage. The phrase lingered in the air like a quiet dismissal. Nadia nodded slowly, not because she agreed, but because she understood. In that moment, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. There was a time when Samir needed her for everything. After his father passed away, Nadia became both stability and sacrifice. She worked long hours, saved carefully, and built a life where nothing was wasted. Not time, not money, not effort. She didn't give him luxury. She gave him security. School fees always paid, medical bills handled, a home that never collapsed even when everything else tried to. She never asked for recognition, because to her, love wasn't something you displayed. It was something you maintained. Quietly, consistently. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Samir grew up in a world where success was visible. Cars, houses, social media posts that proved you were doing well. And Nadia? She didn't fit that picture. Her simple clothes embarrassed him. Her careful spending felt outdated. Her silence was mistaken for lack of pride. He didn't see her sacrifices. He saw her limitations. When he got married, the distance widened. Alina believed in growth, fast, visible, impressive. And Nadia became an obstacle to that vision. "Your mom doesn't understand how things work now," Alina would say. "She's just holding you back." At first, Samir resisted. Then slowly he stopped. The requests began gently. "Just co-sign this. Just help a little. It's temporary." Nadia hesitated, but she trusted him. So she agreed to small things. Paperwork, access, signatures. Nothing felt dangerous at first. Until one day it did. She discovered it by accident. An email left open on a shared device. Documents with her name. Loans in progress. Signatures that looked like hers, but weren't given freely. Her breath slowed. Not from panic. From clarity. This wasn't help. This was control. That evening, they confronted her with confidence. "Everything is already moving forward," Samir said. "You agreed to this," Alina added. Nadia looked at them carefully. "No," she replied softly, "I didn't." They exchanged glances. Then came the familiar tactics. "You're forgetting." "You said yes." "You're overthinking." But this time, something was different. Nadia didn't question herself. She had already seen enough. The next morning, she didn't argue. She didn't shout. She didn't explain. She simply acted. She visited a lawyer, reviewed every document, revoked every permission, locked every account, spoke to the bank, clarified everything, calmly, clearly, completely. By evening, the calls started. "Mom, what did you do? You've delayed everything. This could ruin us." Nadia listened. Then she said something they weren't expecting. "I didn't ruin anything. I protected myself." Silence. Heavy, unavoidable. Samir showed up that night, frustrated. "This is about family," he argued. Nadia met his eyes. "No," she said gently. "This is about boundaries." Alina tried a softer tone. "We're just trying to build a future." Nadia nodded. "Then build it," she replied, "just not on me." For the first time, they had nothing left to say. Because there was no argument against truth. Weeks later, Nadia moved into a small apartment. It wasn't big. It wasn't luxurious. But it was hers. Every corner, every decision, every breath belonged to her. Life became quiet again. But this time the quiet wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. Samir called once, his voice softer. "Careful, we should talk," he said. Nadia listened, then asked one simple question. "What do you want from me?" The pause that followed told her everything. "I love you," she said. "But I'm not your solution." And for the first time in her life, she chose herself. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of understanding, because she finally realized something important. Being needed is not the same as being valued. And love that treats you like a resource was never really love to begin with. Months passed. Not dramatically, not with chaos or confrontation, but with a quiet kind of distance that settles in when something breaks, and both sides pretend it hasn't. Nadia's life had found a rhythm. Mornings with tea by the window, afternoons with books she never had time to read before, evenings that didn't feel heavy anymore. For the first time in years, she wasn't waiting. Not for approval, not for tension, not for the next demand. She was simply living. Samir, on the other hand, was not. The house deal had collapsed within weeks of that final conversation. Without Nadia's financial backing, the approval was withdrawn. Deadlines passed. Opportunities disappeared. What remained was pressure. And pressure has a way of exposing things people try to hide. At first, he blamed the situation. The timing was bad. The lender was difficult. It wasn't our fault. But slowly, and the blame shifted. Toward Alina. "You pushed too fast. You said it would work. You said she would agree." Alina didn't stay silent. "You promised you could handle her. You said she always says yes. You told me this wouldn't be a problem." Their arguments grew sharper. Not louder, just more honest. Because without money holding things together, they had nothing left to hide behind. One night, after a long silence between them, Alina said something that stayed with Samir. "We didn't just lose a house," she said quietly. "We lost your mother." Samir didn't respond, because deep down, he knew that wasn't entirely true. He hadn't lost her. He had pushed her away. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to remember. Not the version of Nadia he had created in his frustration, but the real one, the woman who stayed up late calculating expenses so his school fees would never be delayed. The one who wore the same clothes for years so he could have better ones. The one who never complained, even when life gave her every reason to. He realized something uncomfortable. She had always given. He had just stopped noticing. Days later, he found himself standing outside her apartment building. No plan, no prepared speech. Just a quiet weight in his chest he couldn't ignore anymore. When Nadia opened the door, she didn't look surprised. She looked calm. "Come in," she said. No tension, no accusation, just space. Samir stepped inside slowly, looking around. The apartment was simple, clean, peaceful. It didn't look like a place someone had escaped to. It looked like a place someone had chosen. They sat across from each other. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Samir finally said what he had come to say. "I didn't understand." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was honest. Nadia didn't interrupt. So he continued. "I thought you were holding me back," he admitted. "I thought you didn't want me to move forward." He paused, then added more quietly, "But I never stopped to ask what it was costing you." Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was real. "I was angry," Samir said, "because everyone else seemed to be getting help, and I wasn't." Nadia nodded slightly. "And did you ever think," she asked gently, "about everything you had already received?" The question didn't accuse. It revealed. Samir looked down. Because now, he could see it. All of it. "I'm sorry," he said. And this time, it wasn't about the house. It wasn't about the money. It was about her. Nadia studied his face for a long moment. Not searching for perfection. Just truth. "An apology doesn't rebuild everything," she said softly. "But it's where things can begin again." Samir nodded. "I know," he replied. "And I'm not here to ask for anything." That mattered. More than he realized. Nadia leaned back slightly, her voice steady. "I'm not going to discuss money with you again," she said. "That part of my life is no longer open to negotiation." Samir didn't argue. "I understand. And if we're going to have a relationship," she continued, "it has to be built on respect, not expectation." Samir met her eyes. "For the first time," he said quietly. I think I understand the difference. Nadia didn't rush to forgive him. She didn't erase the past. But she also didn't close the door. Because boundaries don't mean rejection. They mean clarity. When Samir left that day, nothing dramatic had changed. There were no hugs filled with tears, no promises of perfect repair. But something real had begun. Not built on pressure. Not built on obligation. Built on choice. And for Nadia, that was enough. Because she had already learned the most important lesson. You don't have to lose yourself to keep someone in your life. And sometimes, the strongest love you can offer is the kind that stands firm and says, "This is where I end, and you must meet me here."